know who has access to what? This is the Identity at the Center podcast. If you're looking for identity and access management talk, you've come to the right place. And now, on to the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Identity at the Center podcast. My name is Jeff Stedman. I'm on the road this week. Took the show south of the border, Jim, meeting with our friend Arturo Cordoba, who's a senior advisor on the cybersecurity team for Cemex. Hi, Arturo.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jeff. How's Monterrey, Mexico treating you?
It is beautiful. Coming from Chicago, I never see anything more than just flat land, and the mountains here are amazing. So I am drinking it up as much as I can. It is hot, but that's okay. It is a dry heat, as I think some people might think is a little bit better. The humidity is not quite as high, although there was a very cool lightning storm Tuesday night when I got here. So that was kind of neat. Archer, you're probably used to the weather, right?
You are lucky because this week the weather is start cooling down because a few weeks back will be very high. Like 40 something Celsius degree.
That's my kryptonite, man. I can't handle the heat. It's just not my jam. Jim knows.
Oh yeah, I know. And I'm in Georgia and it's plenty hot here still. But Jeff, I mean, you should be commended. It's Friday before Labor Day and you're still working on the road. That means you're going to be traveling home on Saturday, right?
That's correct.
And you're there with Arturo and he's rocking the October fall beard. I love it. He's getting ready for baseball playoff season. That's one of the things I love about Arturo is that he's a fellow baseball junkie.
Yeah, I am. I'm actually this next week, the local teams here in Mexico with the Mexican League, they start playoff next week. So my team made it to the playoff. So
you got your playoff gear going.
Yeah. And so we're going to finish and I continue with the MLB.
The MLB.
Yeah.
What's your team in the MLB?
Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've got quite the team this year, so they'll be playing in October.
Hopefully.
Jeff, like you said before, Jeff, we should have a separate podcast on baseball.
I wouldn't be able to have much value for that one. What's baseball? So Arturo, I'm glad you were able to set aside some time to talk with us.
No, thank you for having me.
We've been working with you for last almost 2 years, I guess, coming up pretty soon. Maybe we can talk a little about your background and, how long have you been? Let's start with IAM. How long have you been in the IAM space?
In the IAM space, it's not clear enough because IAM start like 11 or 12 years ago in the security space, information security. So I'm start like a consultant, information security consultant, mostly for endpoint security things and infrastructure like firewalls, IPS, things like that. And eventually, once that we start involved in more and more security things, I start like taking projects related somehow with identity. At the beginning, without knowing that actually identity was a thing, like around 2011 and 12. It's like 6 years back. So I start thinking like taking things like identity management and things like that. So I think that I didn't realize that I was doing things related with identity. It was until you start reading papers, reading more information, exactly. And so at some point I just realized that I'm an identity professional, right?
What was the first project that you worked on that was specific to identity?
The first one was an implementation of Sun Identity Manager. So we were deploying Sun Identity in different countries. So that was my first project related with identity. And after that, it was like more common until we start like formalizing the department like a couple of years back and start doing things in a more formal way. And also I think that at the same time, and probably we are going to discuss that, but at the same time, I just releasing that the entire market is trying to formalize that practice as well. Like
the early days of IEM and
or the book of knowledge that things like ID Pro is working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should talk about ID Pro.
Yeah, so
maybe we'll get to that one a little bit. That's a relatively new organization, and I know that you recently just joined. I've been a member for a while. And I also helped out with the board selection committee. Jim, are you a member of ID Pro?
I'm not currently.
Oh, Jim.
You are missing the fun.
Just a laggard.
No, but the reason why I arrived there is because I was looking, and actually a couple of years back, I started looking for, what are the kind of certification that an identity professional should meet or should achieve. So I started looking, and I found out that there's not any, or if there are any, it's like very particular, but it's not something generalized like security, like CSP or CSM.
So typically more like product focused, right? I'm a CyberArk engineer, or I'm a SailPoint engineer.
Yeah, but they're very
specific to that technology, right? Yeah. Yeah, ID Pro is something that we're probably going to have a show specific to that at some point. Maybe we can get Debbie from that organization to come on and talk a little bit about it. But it's the beginnings of a very specific group to support other people who are working in the ID world, and I think it's going to be a good thing overall. But we can bring it back to IAM, and let's talk a little bit about what your view is from your perspective of how does IAM get viewed here in Mexico compared to what you see maybe in other countries or the U.S.
Okay, very good question. Well, I see, I don't know why, but I still feel like identity, like being part of security somehow. I'm still like identities being like the child of security somehow, or something that it depends on security, at least in most of the organizations right now here in Mexico. And what I'm seeing is like, and happened the same for security, at least from my point of view. Like if you think on security like 10 years back, at least here in Mexico, it was like something new and something that it wasn't like, okay, you are a security professional, so are you an IT guy who probably oversees or have more projects related with security, but you're an IT guy. Mm-hmm. So I think that in the past 2 years, security has become like, as a security professional with certification, we're more things related to that. And I think that right now identity is following the same path. So I just few more years after that, but I believe that identity is going to fall in the same path that security. So right now, at least here in Mexico, is like more, I would say, like having or is in the increasing in the last few years. For sure, many of organizations related to the financial sector, like the banks or insurance companies, they do have a lot of regulation in that end, so are the most mature right now. And some other international companies like us, like Cemex, they are doing more things related with security because of the same thing, like the same driver is still compliance. Mm-hmm. But I think that we are very early in the sense of adopting new technologies, or actually that the companies have people really dedicated to identity.
Specifically to identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arturo. So one of the interesting things I would think is, have you had to go out and hire people with an IAM background, or have you tried to do that? And what was your experience? Were there many people in the market who had the skills that you were looking for, or did you feel like you'd have to bring somebody in and train them either on IAM basics or product specific skills?
Yeah, actually, we start looking for more people since last year, and actually, yeah, it was a surprise. Like we had a very hard time to find people. Actually, we still do, because it's like very specific. Even though trying to find people focus on security right now here in Mexico is not that easy. Unfortunately, most of the universities in here, they didn't have information security career until just a few years back. And I mean, one of the most important universities here in Monterrey, they didn't have a master degree from security until I think that this year is going to start or something like that. So I think that in the sense of the university is getting or preparing people for that, it is relatively new. And so yeah, it's very hard right now. And I have been reading some papers about that or opinion on the internet that they tell you about it is better to train somebody, like pick somebody with certain skills, like people who is more creative, or because that also identity, at least from my perspective, is like yes, it is a cybersecurity mindset somehow, but also is that creativity or that sense of be a problem-solving guide rather than just a person who knows about technology, right?
Yeah.
And some of the articles about that, they say that it was better like hire somebody and train him to be as a IT person and an identity person. I hear that also one of the conference on Identiverse this year, it was a girl from, I don't remember the name of the company, but he was trained to be an identity professional in that company, and she was from help desk. And I'm also thinking about that because help desk are the ones that have like more sense of the end user rather than people who is working on other projects. So
I can attest to that. That's my background is help desk. I fell kind of I knew I wanted to be in security and just kind of fell into IAM as my way to get into security, and I've been there ever since. But, going back to what you're saying about the hiring, I have a very similar take on that. When I'm looking to bring someone on, technology skills are important, but I can typically train technology. What I can't train is personality, the drive to get things done, those sorts of things. And this goes back even before my IT days when I was in the service industry, waiting tables, managing restaurants, those sorts of things. Give me a person with a good attitude and I can train them to do just about anything. And I think that's something that's interesting here, especially when it is difficult to find IAM resources. And Jimmy, you've seen this as well. Trying to find very specific skill sets is very difficult. It's even harder when it's such a competitive market like IAM, where you have even more limited talent pool. So you do have to invest in training folks and getting people up to the skills that you want. But you also have to make it an environment where they want to stay,
right,
and continue on with that, because you don't want your investment to walk out the door, 2 years later or a year later, because they're not happy with the way things are going. So it is, I think, on companies to invest in their people, make it an environment where they want to stay.
Right. In any ways, it's not easy because it's not like, okay, just took the train for, I don't know, from certain technologies. It's not clear the path for the training either. So you have to figure out what is next.
So if you need somebody who's going to be the overall IAM architect, you don't want to take somebody who doesn't have IAM experience. You don't want to have to train for too many different elements. I kind of agree with where you're going, where both of you guys are going. Skills like intangibles, like creativity and having good customer service focus. I think those are must-haves. But then if you're going to have somebody who's going to be your in a large organization, your number one IAM person, they need to have some relevant background, some relevant skills kind of going into that position.
Yeah, you really have to know what your runway is, right? If you've got a long runway, you might be able to invest more time, but most organizations don't, at least at the very beginning, right? They need to get things going.
Right.
You're starting an IAM program.
You don't have too much turnover in your group, right? If you have an IAM team that consists of 10 people, you don't want to be losing 5 of those people every year. You're not going to have much continuity in your program if you do. I'd say one of the things that I've seen, in terms of organizations that are successful in maintaining large IAM groups and having highly skilled people are those that either have multiple locations where they can source people from, or they have a work from home culture. And this is something that I wanted to put back to Arturo is, especially with Mexican companies, the question would be, do you feel like there's a culture where working from home would be acceptable, or having full-time remote employees, or what's it like? Is the culture more driven towards everybody needs to be in the same place?
Well, right now, or start shifting into more open to remote office, or having these open spaces into the buildings of the companies. It's something relatively new, and most of the times this is driven because of the problem with transportation in big cities like here in Monterrey. So we are facing right now issues with, I don't know, people moving from one place to another, like 1 hour or more than an hour, like 2 hours drive from home to the office. So it's not, you cannot maintain that lifestyle. So it starts changing that. Most of the consultancy companies do it, and it's fine, it's acceptable. And for some other companies, they are seeing the benefits, like having smallest offices, or reducing the times for moving from one city, from one location to another. But I think that Mexico is moving into that culture, probably a little bit behind you guys, but they are doing some changes on that end. And also in general, the culture, because of the new generation, like millennials right now, that are getting to big companies like this, or old companies like Cemex that more than 100 years old. And so the company needs to make this transformation and actually be very open and very attractive for this new talent, because otherwise the new talent will go for the ones that have the more fun stuff into the office, or more flexible in terms of the schedule of the time and things like that. So I think that if the companies are not willing to transform, they will eventually die, or they eventually get in trouble to get people on board, because otherwise they don't have any shot on that.
What are some of the challenges that you see as we're working on the IAM program here at Cemex? What are some of the challenges that you see just starting that up and getting it going that you've run into over the last few years?
The most challenging in general about identity?
Yeah, just about starting up the program.
I think that the first thing is that how you communicate that identity is actually a thing. I mean, and it's important. Yes. Yeah. So what are you talking about? So are you talking about security, IT, data, or most of the time it really helps, like using like trend topics, like, I don't know, like security most of the times, compliance for sure will help. But it has been like a process, like a processing where you need to actually communicate along with the conversation around security, because at least we are part of the security team here. So it is like the conversation driving in the security side, but also saying that, okay, this is something new and something that is not only about security, but it's also about compliance. It is also about user experience. It's about all the other benefits that you have along with those. And passing the message, like, okay, this is something beneficial, and how a program as a whole will help you on that.
What are some of the, use cases that the business comes to you for from an IM perspective? Do you see any differences between this region of the world compared to maybe what you've heard from conferences that we've been to, like Identiverse, or Gartner, or Black Hat? Are they very similar use cases, onboarding, offboarding, or are there other things that might be?
Yeah, I think that they are similar, and this is something that really what is the word? Like, it made me happy, because I'm not alone in this.
Right.
So
weird.
Yeah, because at the beginning I was still saying that probably these use cases are very particular for us as a region, or as a company, because we have locations in more than 35 countries. So I thought that it was based on the type of company, probably, but I realized, knowing more peers in the security and identity space, that the challenges are the same, and they are struggling with MFA deployment. They are struggling with the automation of certain technologies. So they are, having a bad time with one particular vendor, things like that, right? So, and they are the same. So actually, sometimes this kind of conference I like a shoulder to cry, right?
Right.
Along with your peers,
Right,
and it's fun, but at the same time it's like, okay, so we are not alone on that road, and we can share experience and share tips about that. But yeah, most of the cases, and for instance, based on region and things like that, we just recently finished worldwide deployment for multi-factor authentication, and we had certain challenge for different countries and regions because not all the people like for example in Mexico or in the US, they are willing to use their phone, even that it's a personal phone for doing MFA.
Right.
But in some other countries they are not, so they are saying like, why should I use my personal phone for something related to work? So
there's an expectation that if you're making me use this for work, then you really should be paying for it, or I don't want to do that.
Yeah, in some other countries even they have like a very very strict work council. So you have to lead with that as well. So it is different from country to another.
Right. Do you notice any difference from an expectation of things like SLA or how long it takes to get things done? Let's maybe take like onboarding, for example. I think, everyone would love to have it be automated and it works just automatically. But the reality is some companies, they take 2 days to work on that, or a week or 2 weeks. Do you notice any difference with being a global company where, in the US, the expectation is that this work will be done in 2 days, but in let's say Germany, the expectation is that it's 1 day. Do you notice any differentiation between that?
Not really. I mean, usually the process that we review the use cases from one country to another, it's quite the same. And probably it's because we are a very globalized world. So if you go into LinkedIn and you see like people saying, oh, I'm just joining to this company, and show the photo from the welcome kit with all the freebies and all the things there. So I think that HR is the kind of experience that they are trying to deliver to their customer, which are the employees. And so I think that in terms of expectation, they're trying to expect the same. And in recent years, also HR departments are living this transformation with different tools from their side. So they are looking for the same. So how we can onboard people in the fastest way. So other concern, not for HR, but for security is, okay, what about the offboarding? Probably HR is not really concerned about the offboarding because they are just saying bye-bye and that's it, as long as they could from the payroll system. But for security standpoint, we try to look for, okay, we need to make sure that the offboarding also works at the right time, right?
Right. What about language support? Do you find that because of being a global company that there may be language challenges, or have you settled on a certain language as sort of like the default?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Actually, we usually struggle with that. And most of the cases we ended up making of our own translations. Even though that the system, for instance, the Sun migration at the time, we had to translate a lot of things from the out-of-the-box solution. So we usually work with the local IT or HR departments to make that translation. So even that the product come up with French language, the French guy will look and say, this don't make any sense. So they make the change of the translation from the own language of and I think that in Spanish happened the same. And also we have Spanish from Spain, from Latin America, from Argentina. So we have that variation as well in some languages. But yeah, this is another challenge as well. And it happened right now the same with cloud technologies, and it's more difficult, the customization there. It's always a challenge.
Do you find a lot of the technologies are more English focused at this point, or are they doing a pretty good job of having better native support for different languages?
They are getting better. I mean, they're not the same like 10 years ago, but they're getting better. I think that they are not reaching a point yet in where they have like strong language capability. And also the other thing is that the world is getting more globalized. So it is true that most of the, for instance, administrators, employees can handle in different languages, at least in global companies. But also that is true is that we have a lot of local workforce which just focus on their own language. Like in France, they will speak French and that's it. It happened the same here in Mexico, right? So yeah, it's something that is needed, and companies are doing better right now, but still a thing in language.
Jim, when you're working on different projects, do you see a lot of kind of language things come up?
I was sitting here thinking, I was thinking back to the workshops that we held with Arturo and the folks there. And I thought everybody spoke excellent English. I mean, better than I was expecting going into the meetings. But one of the things that we have to remember is that almost every large corporation has, factories or folks in the field. And that's where, linking back to everybody speaks English at least as a second language breaks down, right? And you get to the point where you have to make your systems available in multiple languages. I definitely remember the days, a decade ago with systems like Sun or Oracle, and it wasn't specific to the systems, but it was just, we needed to make all of our solutions available in multiple languages, and most of them had language packs, yet they didn't have, translations for customizations that you put into the system. So if you added some language, you'd have to add it in whatever number of languages you wanted to support and make those language files available. I haven't run into it as much these days. I think a lot of enterprise deployments, companies make the decision to make their systems available in English only. And usually I think the biggest driver of that decision is cost, quite frankly. I think the other thing is that there are more technologies now that are browser-based that will do some automatic translations, and sure, they probably come out funky. I always point back to, I wanted to take my wife and I wanted to go on a vacation to Iceland. We were looking at going there for our honeymoon. And this was 20 years ago, and found an Iceland tourism site, and it was obviously translated from whatever the local language is into English, and it said, don't forget to bring your swimming costumes. And I thought that was hilarious, right? I was like, I don't have a swimming costume. But actually, as we were talking about all this, I was thinking also about, I know that Arturo is at some stage in his privileged access management deployment. Privileged access management deployments, in my experience, often run into a lot of resistance, primarily from the folks that do system administration. They're used to, knowing accounts on the servers, and that's kind of a safety net in their mind in terms of they can always get into those systems. Now you want to put something in between, and you want to look over their shoulder. So I'm wondering, Arturo, what has been your experience so far in rolling out privileged access management? And has there been much in the way of resistance?
Well, in terms of resistance, I think that for sure PAM is one of them, but I think that in general, any change that may impact the end user, they will require this kind of management of the change. And it's interesting because I have been working with different partners here related with either PAM implementation or single sign-on implementation with Microsoft technology, for instance. And a lot of companies right now, even though they are companies focused on technology or identity security, they are either working with a partner company or like a smaller company or a sister company that is dedicated to organizational change management. So I think that in the last few years, also the technology companies, in this case, related with any kind of deployment that involves the end user, they are adding this important piece of organizational change management. It's something that also here the company has been working in the past 4 years now, and having this department in charge of that. But it's something that, I don't know, like 6 years ago, at least here in Mexico, you don't see that kind of change management. So right now, I think that companies are releasing that it's important and it's something that needs to be added. And yeah, actually this week that we were reviewing about we are still in the planning phase for PAM, and we include into the deployment and into the whole project that piece, because since the beginning we knew that it's going to be important to manage the change in a better way. So, but what comes to my mind in that when we were reviewing that is like, okay, that's interesting because the companies are including this, but usually they have focus team or even a focus company on in only change management. So yeah, it is important, and probably with the help of these companies is where you are getting into more strategies around how do you convince your administrator, how you sell internally to your administrator the idea or not idea, but the benefits, because there are benefits there for sure, but it's not always as easy for everybody to get all the benefits. So this is where change management comes into play, and they really help you to understand what is the benefit on this. It happens the same with MFA. So, okay, what is the benefit of this? I don't get it. So just IT bother me with this accept button that I'm gonna hit for that. But it's a lot of benefit behind that. So it's important that organizational change management take place and say, okay, this is important because of this, and that the security department works with them to pass the message through.
That's your $1 million idea for this podcast. I mean,
found a change management company.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's really spot on. I mean, I think it's something that was much more overlooked in the past, but it's a key component of being successful is thinking through what is the impact of this technology or process that we're going to create change for people, and how are we going to make sure that we minimize the impact of the negative impact of the change. So I know we're running up on time, but I did want to touch on one more topic at least, which is GDPR and global privacy regulations overall, Arturo, and kind of how are they impacting you so far in terms of your job and having to make accommodations for global privacy regulations?
At least here in the company, these kind of topics are handled by the compliance department. But yeah, definitely we were involved on some of the changes that were needed for that.
See it more on the compliance side,
yeah.
at least for here.
Yep.
Right. All right. I got one last question, and it's really more around the work or the studying that you did for your master's around blockchain. So can you tell me a little bit, or maybe talk a little bit about the dissertation you did regarding blockchain and identity management?
Yes. Well, I did my master's degree in 2015 to 16. I did a master's degree on cybersecurity on the University of Southampton in the UK. And I went there just to, I need a break after 8 years straight of work. And I went there, let's go update in the cybersecurity space in general. So it was pretty cool because you unplug everything from your regular life and you go back to the classroom and you get fresh. Yeah, and you get fresh. Actually, it was like a lot of work because you have in the UK, it's just 1 year for your master degree. It's different than the other countries that usually have 2 years for that. And it was very good in terms of going back to cybersecurity and grasp a lot of topics. So one of the topics that really caught my mind that then was the blockchain technology. And at that time, there was a lot of hype on everything related to blockchain and Bitcoin and things like that. And so I decided to, I took that topic, blockchain, and I added the identity because at that time I were working on identity as well. So I was talking with with the professor that I was working on that dissertation. And she said, she was an Italian professor. She said, okay, let's combine both of them. Let's take identity, let's take blockchain, and let's do some research about what is the market doing and how things are going in that end. So it was basically, we didn't build something in terms of building a product or something. It was more like a research.
Right. Where can blockchain apply? Where would it make sense to use from an identity perspective? Is that the kind of...
Yeah, it was taken at general. So general blockchain, what it is, how it works, and then also taking the identity part. So how you can apply a blockchain, because you know that blockchain technology, they have different use cases and different implementation ways to implement it. So one of the things was, okay, what about identity? And one of the main topics for that was, okay, what are the issues with the identity systems right now, right? And one of the particular issues that I found is that you have everything in a single location. So most of the hacks related to, for instance, the certificate authority thing, in where they have all the keys in one place. Mm-hmm. So the attacker get into that systems and get to install all the whole keys, right? So you're screwed at that time. So so it's how we can separate that, how we can take advantage of the distributed layering, where you perhaps can have like distributed all that information, and at some point, why not the end user or the user can keep all that sensitive information? So if somebody breaks into the main location, there's not any key there. So or things like that. So it's taking blockchain as a distributed ledger to have that spread different systems and don't have it everything in a single location. And one of the proposal was also to use zero knowledge proof, which is another type of implementation, cryptography implementation, to don't share all the information with in this case, with the service provider. So imagine that you are an identity provider and you need to prove something to the service provider. So in that proof, how you can actually prove whatever they are asking for without revealing the whole information that you have. So using this kind of cryptography, you are able to somehow make that proof without actually revealing the whole information. So it's more in a privacy standpoint, in where you say, okay, what if there is any way in where you can actually prove? Imagine everything in your personal life that you need to prove to somebody that you are more than 20 years old for buying a beer, or you are I don't know, your title or your certification. Every proof that you need to make, you can make it the proof without revealing any extra or additional information. So it's like a lot of concepts around that are for privacy and for getting back the privacy to the actual user. And this is also a very interesting topic, because right now, as you may know, a lot of hacks related to privacy, right? Or to what are doing companies like Google or Facebook in terms of privacy. They are exploiting that part rather than keep it private. So a lot of conversation around that is also to how we can take back that privacy, how we can take back control over our own things and have that privacy. And these are protocols that help you on that. Unfortunately, at least at that time, 3 years back, they weren't any more efficient protocols for that. So the implementation of that were just in lab, or only with some research doing. IBM was working on that at the time. So yes, I think that are very good technology and a lot of good things going around that. So hopefully in the near future, if the researchers continue working on that, or if more people is willing to research on that, we will have interesting implementation either around blockchain or protocols like zero knowledge proof.
Yeah, I see it being more applicable to more of like the consumer space. I'm still struggling to find a good application for where it makes sense to use blockchain inside the enterprise. I mean, there's probably some out there, and I would certainly welcome anyone who has thoughts around that, because I'm curious what those might be that would be practical today for blockchain use. But I certainly see it more external facing, right? It's more government focused. It's school, medical records, those sorts of things where you do need to have an expectation of privacy, and you want to take the concept of, the zero knowledge is really kind of the concept of least privilege, right?
Right.
If you think about it from a data attribute perspective. So how do I prove that I am 21 years old or 18 years old? Do I need to show my full ID? We were talking about this at lunch, right? Where it has my address and my name and everything else in addition to my age? Or can I have just a system that says it's binary? Yes, no. Is this person 18 or older? Yes. Does it matter if I'm 50, 40, 30 or, new 18? Probably not in that case. And I can see use cases like that where you need to demonstrate certain things, right, with that knowledge.
Right, but I mean, blockchain is something that we can talk like
we could talk
entire
forever.
chapter of the podcast, and
we'll probably have to
even
do
more. Yeah,
have a separate one. So I think that's probably a good place to leave it with the utter confusion that blockchain tends to invoke amongst people. I feel like I've sat through and listened to so many blockchain things that I probably know it, and I still feel like I don't know it.
Yeah, it's a lot of conversation. Yeah, one of my colleagues here that he's in charge of the compliance department, and he said that blockchain is only for financial things and related to to have a coin and something in particular like Bitcoin, things like that. And actually he's true, because it is the way that was created, but they are finding some different implementation ways to do it, and that doesn't mean that you cannot do it for something else. But it's the same concept, but applied in a different way. So.
It'll adapt and move to something, or it'll spark something new. I mean, that's just the way that technology and innovation works in general, right?
No, and in something that really surprised me, once that start studying or researching more about Bitcoin, is that all the technologies involved in the concept of Bitcoin and blockchain were very old ones. I mean, distributed systems already exist. Yeah. A lot of concepts, all of them already exist a few years back. Was until somebody put all the pieces together and say, this is the idea.
Right.
So this is something that is really, really surprised me, and at the same time really give me a lot of hope for the future, because how many applications or how many technology that we already have could end up in some kind of idea like that. So
and
interesting.
As a professional podcaster, because I'm going to call myself now, that goes back to the creativity that you were talking about earlier, right? It took the creativity of someone to say, hey, what if we combine these pieces in this specific order, in this specific way? And all of a sudden you had this brand new space that, I mean, you put blockchain in your name, and people were throwing money at you left and right.
No, and then the other mystery is about the creator.
Yeah, who created it, right?
Satoshi Nakamoto. So
exactly. Is
that's
it one person?
Cool. Yeah, that's very cool.
Who knows? Now we're getting into the Illuminati and
he said this is how the problem is solved, and boom, that's it. This is white paper. Go for it.
Jim, do you have anything you want to close out with?
No, you guys killed it there.
All right. Well, I certainly appreciate the time, Arturo. It's always good to see you. It's always good to see the mountains of Monterey, and look forward to coming back soon. Appreciate the time you've spent with us. And we're going to go ahead and leave it there. For folks who are listening, hope you enjoyed this. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, put out a 5-star rating or 8. Tell your friends. Tell Jim's dad if you listened to last week's episode. We're always looking to have different ideas come our way. And if there are things that you want to send to us, you can get a hold of us at questions@identityathecenter.com. And we'll talk to you on the next one. Thanks all.
You guys, boy.
You've been listening to the Identity at the Center podcast. To access all episodes, visit identityathecenter.com.